Alright, welcome to the slightly delayed round 3 of Wayfinder build guides. This week, we might have 2 this week, but for this, I will say this week we are doing Silo as we are just, there's a lot of Windgrave guides out there I noticed. There's very little for Silo, not a lot of love for the big man. Also, one Sorrow, who's on the Discord, was very upset I didn't have a Silo build in my poll to start with. So this one goes out to you, Sorrow. Anyways, we'll jump into our favorite shooty X-Strike Bandit Boy in just a second here. Alright, so Silo is Survivalist. It's kind of Wayfinder's version of a rogue. If you consider the Arcanist mages and the Weapon Masters fighters, then Survivalists are kind of Wayfinder's rogues. So, before we head out there, big thing with rogues is if we pop into the abilities, they get this exposed weakness thing. On a critical hit, they expose the enemies, marking it for teammates, and the enemies will take more damage. So you pretty much want crits for survivalists always. Never leave off your crits on your survivalists. And then survivalists can dash around more often. And then Silo's particular advantage is he deals more basic attack damage to enemies that are slowed, burning, poisoned, stunned, etc. Which is a good segue into Silo's abilities. So, we'll head on out here. If you're wondering why I always do it out here, it's because there's usually always some group of enemies out here. So one of Silo's abilities, he can throw down his little decoy. That will taunt the enemies to attack it. It may not work on some AoE attacks like that, of course. That's pretty self-explanatory, and that segues into another good point about Silo, not Silas. Unlike many other Wayfinders, that's pretty much his only defensive ability. You can see also we can throw the firebomb. That lights the big dude on fire. Pretty self-explanatory at a base level. And throw this oil bomb, which slows them. If you combo a firebomb with an oil bomb, it explodes for a little extra range and additional effectiveness. Some of that will have to do with your perks. That's your basic kit. Now, I'll put a quick cut in here because I'm going to have to build up some ultimate charge. As you might have guessed from that, I don't really build for Silo's ultimate. I've never found it particularly useful. If you find Silo's ultimate useful or have some great use for it, feel free to let me know down in the comments. Now I just need to find another group of enemies. Silo's ultimate is visually quite impressive, but
you know what to do.
I don't find hugely... So yeah, basically an orbital barrage type maneuver thing. I guess while we're here, I'll show you what this gun does. That's got nothing specifically to do with Silo, but we'll just find a quick moment to stop and chat over here. Alright. So yeah, firebomb. Tosses a firebomb that ignites enemies and does a large explosion with an oil bomb. Pretty self-explanatory. For the most part, you want to throw the oil bomb than the firebomb. You will occasionally, the firebomb charges faster, and you will often get a charge of the firebomb from the oil bomb, but basically use that to keep enemies burning to keep your bonus damage up. Now we've got a few synergies with we've upgraded the firebomb, just give it some more actual damage, and they will also explode when they die. That's the third one's kind of a the other two are pretty good as long as you have moderate ability power. Oil bomb throws a pool of oil in front of Silo. Burns enemies hit when the pool of oil detonates, which means when you throw the firebomb at them. Oiled enemies are more likely to be critically hit. That's the big important one there. And the damage in the guard break of the detonation is nice, but not necessary. You can see Silo has a few up. He doesn't have great perks, generally speaking. We've got his clone. That, again, you drop that so that stuff doesn't attack you. That is your main source of defense. Very important. It's also used to set up my I use it to set up the vortex gun ability. If you drop the clone and then shoot the vortex at the clone, it will hit all the enemies that are attacking the clone. Same idea with the oils. You can do that. Now, the clone, I've given it larger duration, so it lasts longer. The other two perks I don't find particularly good. The break damage is never that great, I've found. It's also very hard to actually notice that one going off. And then exploding doesn't really do much for it. Because generally you're gonna kill the enemies with other things before the clone explodes. My clone usually expires while there's nothing there unless it's being used on a boss. Arc Nemesis, this is his ultimate. I can see a little bit of crowd control use of this with this slow effect. Shock sounds like it should crowd control them, but it doesn't. It just damages them. Then the level 3 version, again, you could kind of put that to use, but you'd have to really build around his ultimate. That's not what I've done, so if you want to do that, feel free to do that. Vortex, that comes from the Duskbringer. You probably do not have the Duskbringer if you are a new player. As far as I've only ever seen it come from the Mythic shop, and that Mythic Hunt shop at the end of the game. Based on the materials to upgrade, I'm not sure where else it would drop. But probably at the start of if you started with Silo, you will get Ransom. You'll also probably find a ton of them early on. It's not terrible. Ransom's a pretty solid gun. It's got this nice little shoot while dodging thing. Not the greatest thing in the world. Early on with Silo, I do like to use Tempest. Tempest has always been a fairly solid shotgun, even though it got nerfed because it was super overpowered in the original live MMO version. But yeah, it just blasts stuff. It used to fire more blasts, I believe. Another early gun. You don't really get a lot of the guns early. That's the biggest problem with guns. I have heard some good things about Sword and Shield Silo, even though it doesn't really make any sense. If you're going to do that, I'd probably recommend Tooth and Claw. Lets you throw the Sword and Shield. Survivalists also can do pretty good with daggers because they can use them instead as a defensive ability. As to which particular daggers I would recommend for Silo, I don't really have any solid opinions on those. Harvest Moon's a good one just for a giant damage buff for you and your team. And that's pretty much the extent of what I would possibly recommend on daggers. Moving on into Affinity. I like this because when I set enemies on fire, I get movement speed, being able to move around really fast without having to use your dodge stamina. Can be quite useful in battles, especially with some of those later ones that like to throw tons of mobs at you. Something rats. Why is it always rats? Spoilers or not spoilers, possibly trauma flashbacks for people who are at the end game. In here, Strategic Advantage is the other one. This is kind of a basic attack build, as you can tell by the level of weapon power sitting there. So we do like our Strategic Advantage, which is the one we're burning, oiling the guys, all gives us damage bonuses. Exploit Opening does give us crit chance against those debuff targets. If you're going to go pure crit, this is the tree you want to go down to all the way. Because when you shoot at the debuffed crit targets, it will do super lots of cooldown reduction and additional crits. This is probably the highest raw DPS one. This one gives you a little more survivability and basic attacks, though. On this stuff over here, this is like trying to make him a spellcaster, which I don't think really works out too well at all. We'll come around to that maybe eventually. If I continue to get enough views and likes on Wayfinder content, we'll do one for each tree, for each perk tree, for each Wayfinder. Talents. So a silo, again, this is your super crit side of the tree. If you really want to see big numbers, make big numbers, but not necessarily consistently, go up into this tree. The left side of this does some weird stuff, but... So, as with all the talent trees, the purple nodes are just freebies on the path there. They're never going to completely redefine your build. The green ones give you a pretty nice bonus and the echo capacity. These purple triangles are better than regular purples, but only by twice. But your big ones are your oranges. So unlike, I think, both of my previous builds, I have taken a prime node on Silo. Dodging grants stacking increases in weapon power, stacking up to 5 times, lasting 5 seconds. Dodge a lot, and you will get more and more weapon power. Simple. Keep in mind, when that says 6%, it means 6% of your true weapon power, which is actually 10% of what's actually displayed. Or basically what's displayed is showing 10 times the actual amount. Health is the real stat, resilience is double the real stat, and everything else is 10 times the real stat. Why they did this, I don't know. Monster Hunter does something similar, and it's equally annoying there sometimes. It's to try and make the numbers all look kind of even though this one's not too bad because it's percent. But the ones with damage shields particularly, it's awful. Exposed weakness is stronger, dropping explosives while dodging every now and then. You could ultimately skip on this one and try and get something else with those 4 points. You can't really get to another node with 4 points, you'll notice, though. You're like too short to even get to a green one. You could try and go in and get one of the triangles, though, if you want. Because, yeah, this one's a novelty. I had to get something at that point, and that was what was there. You could go down here and get the extra guard slot. That will give you a little more tankiness too. That's probably the alternative I'd recommend, if anything. Incoming damage reduced by 20% skin with your missing stamina. We're going to be dodging a lot. We're going to be burning our stamina because dodging gives us weapon power and drops explosives. Silo's biggest thing is survival. Miles. If you don't have someone popping damage shields on you, you want to get your Silo a little bit of extra beef in the house. Critical hit gives a chance to grant stamina, which directly anti-synergizes with this to an extent, but lets you keep on dodging as long as you get criticals. Alright, moving on to stats. As with my previous guide, stats are a guideline. I'm not going to tell you to go grab this, that super rare one-time echo that you have to get in a mythic crucible hunt. I'm just going to tell you the general stats to chase, and you can apply those echoes as you want. For our build here, get some health when you have the opportunity. So when you got a guard slot, even when you got a cross slot or a balance slot, work some health into the mix. You don't have to go crazy about it. I'd rather have 5. I'd try and target 5,000 if I could. I might even redo my talent tree to get that other guard slot, which would let me have 5,000 for sure after I awaken the extra couple of times. But yeah, being able to take a hit and drink a potion or get healed is a very good baseline for Silo. Don't try and actually make him a tank. It won't work. Fizz defense, mag defense is whatever. You can get some if it bleeds off another echo like this one, but it's not going to. You generally are, it's not bad to have, but it's nothing you want to focus on. Weapon power is the big one. You can see our weapon power is 16,000, so we can just shoot guys all day long. You want an appreciable crit rating. Arguably, I might take a little weapon power out. I could take a weapon power out and go for some crit rating. I think I awakened something that gave me the gun. I think when I awakened it gave me a whole pile of extra weapon power because I was sitting around 14,000, I think. Resilience, if you get your 5,000 health, or if you can get resilience via what I call bleed over effect, like coming off another echo like this, you can get some resilience, get it in there. I wouldn't recommend any less than 1,500 resilience, because if you get resilience as your guard meter, if your guard meter gets cracked, you both get staggered, and you take a bunch of extra damage from anything that hits you while it's cracked. And that can end Silo very quickly. again, hammering that point home. Silo is glass cannon. The glass cannon. This is very glass cannon, but we'll eventually get a way to offset that. Silo don't. No fancy trickery for Silo. Kind of the same with armor. You can see I've got some super fancy mythic stuff up here, but just kind of chase those same stats. That's what you're looking for. And you will be all set. Accessories, to some extent, the same thing applies there. However, the set I have on is, if I can, let me sort by name. I believe this comes from having double flora mod mutators. You can get these. One of them, you have to craft the bracer, birth and decay at Arsenal, not Arsenal, the engineer. Next to Arsenal, the Reign of Mandrake, the necklace of overgrowth you get from your double flora expeditions. Gives us that weapon power boost, gives us crit power. Physical defense, there are better things. I don't have the set for a better triplet, essentially. So I don't mind the physical defense because it stops you getting swarmed by swarms of tiny little annoying things like rats. Oh, the rats. Anyways. So yeah, that's a good artifact set. Again, chase your relevant stats more than you chase specific artifacts until you get to the actual like level 30 where you get to the end game and you can actually start getting level 30 or level 35 in the Crucible drops. Because if you try and chase anything too specific before that, you're just going to spin your wheels and get frustrated. Kind of the same thing with echoes. I'll show you my echoes as some examples here. I'll go a little slower. So, some of these you can get early on. A lot of these you can actually get early on. But yeah, don't worry too much if you can't get a specific echo like a... where is it? If you can't get an Eldraine Ring Blade, just grab a Seer. It's only slightly less crit rating. And Seers you can find all over the place. They're one of the basic Gloom enemies, like big gargoyle-y guys. A lot of Wayfinders like that. Don't try and chase the endgame build unless you're really into grinding that endgame completionism. For Rush Echoes, I'm going to start off by telling you what I think you would get at the start of the game. Because what I have is very far from the end game, so... Start of the game for Silo. Get Broodmother Silwrath, literally the first boss you fight. That damage shield will help you a whole heck of a lot, especially if you keep your max health reasonably high when you get into a spot of trouble. The other early one for Silo, both these are in my video, which should be in the playlist that's in the description with all the guides for Wayfinder. How to beat Broodmother Silwrath, and how to beat Commander Creed. Commander Creed, when you do an Eagle Eye shot, you get a large blast of physical damage equal to 125% of your weapon power. Basically, you shoot the Eagle Eye shot and your bullet explodes. Very early echo. Very nice for any shooty guy. The melee finisher part, kind of iffy on that. You don't tend to naturally do melee finishers all that often. I find there's better ones for them. Going on to the Echo we actually have equipped though, which you can get in earlier form earlier, but we have Mythic Kolar the Beastmaster. And you're kind of hoping for that Panther one to trigger that you can see, which increases your crit rating. That's it. The other two are not terribly bad. The Vulture will leave a Path of Frost, which slows the enemies down and lets you dodge away. The Bear will also just slam a target and briefly stagger them, again letting you get away. And that can go off every 20 seconds if you get a critical strike, which we're pretty good at getting. Because the reason my crit rating is low there, and you can piece together this from what I've already mentioned, but the crit rating is a little lower because Silo gets that stacking crit bonus on debuffed. He gets the crits on debuffed enemies and from exposed weakness and things like that. Over here we've got Brel the Storm Thorns. Shoot enemies after successful hotspot reload and you shoot 3 arrows in front of you. Up to 4 times within 9 seconds. Basically, it's a whole bunch of extra bullets. I don't know if they scale off weapon power or ability power, but they're pretty effective. If you weren't going to use that one, like if that's not your particular jam, you could use the Trickster, or not the Trickster, sorry. My brain, why? Equilibrium, just to have some extra stamina. You could also just keep running Commander Creed, who does have a mythic version as well. You can do Mythic Wormwood if you want to have your own healing. Not really what I'd try and go for. And then the Bloodboar is another kind of... The Bloodboar is one of those ones that's cool, but it's based on ability power. And I believe that's the same for... There's a similar but slightly different pattern of attacks that goes from the AS Conflux. Again, it makes these cool lasers when you hit Eagle Eyes and stuff, or run out of bullets, but it's based on ability power. It's for like a magic user using a gun, not Silo. Kind of the same thing with Astral Zephyr. This one is quite nice, but again, it's ability power based, so it doesn't really go great with what we're doing. All right. So that pretty much covers Silo. If you're just looking for the information and to get out, thank you for watching. Remember to leave a like and a subscribe, comment, let me know what I should do next for build videos or guide videos. And if you want to hang out, we'll show you some higher end gameplay here in just a second.